to work within our parameters, which means that you only have a certain length of time and you only have so much money. So there were lots of conversations going on because, I mean, in a fun way, I would spend the morning getting people dressed for the day, and between Phoebe leaving her truck and getting to set, she may have rewritten something, and she would be on the phone saying, "I've rewritten it. Can I have this?" And suddenly that'd be me. I'd be, well, yeah, I'll try and do my best as soon as possible. So it was very free range.
Well, I just want to say for the group, that makes it even more remarkable. I think I can speak for the group. That makes it even more remarkable that you achieved what you did, because it's just, I mean, I think it's the best TV show ever. You know, I used to say Breaking Bad, and I'm sorry, it's been replaced.
You're very kind. You're very kind. We did actually, we very rarely met, didn't we? Apart from on set.
That's very true, yeah.
Very briefly, when they were setting up a new location.
Exactly, we didn't really have time to hang out.
Say, "Hi, how are you? Oh my God, is this awful or is this great?" Off we go.
No, it was good. It was a really tough job, but you know, we always knew it was going to be a great product, and so you kind of put up with a lot more when you know that you're doing something good.
Yeah, I think we all love Phoebe, don't we? We love Phoebe in the car.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She is completely amazing. You now and again you want to go, "Oh my God, what's she doing? She's changed it again," but it's with love, and it's because she's such a talent, and she's so lovely. So lovely.
We're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what we keep hearing from everyone.
No, that's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
That's good.
Oh. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question from Diane. Where were the priest and Fleabag when he was trying on vestments for the wedding? The space seemed quite neutral. So that was a location. It was a small boutique clothes shop in what part of town
was it in Tottenham Court Road?
No, it was out of town. It was somewhere weird, like Finchley or Mill Hill or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'll have it somewhere on my computer. But as ever with a lot of these locations, we scouted them really late, and this shop, I seem to remember we couldn't find anywhere that worked, and we were thinking we didn't have the money to build it, so we were thinking, could we kind of set it up in another space that we were filming in? But then that would have been quite a big dress for us when we didn't have the budget. So we ended up finding this little boutique, or the location manager found this boutique shop, which we kind of had to strip out a lot of the fashion wear and put in some more religious stuff. But it was a really last minute find. I seem to remember that we didn't scout it until something like the day before we shot it or something crazy.
It was the day before. Yeah.
And so we just really scrambled to put that all together. But it was a really tiny shop on a tiny little parade. And I think nobody was pleased that we were there, because we kind of interrupted their trade.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Shall I go to Chrissy Moore?
Yeah, go for it. The birthday girl.
The priest is showing Fleabag his first robe. Did Ray have to go to Rome to find proper plum? Well, it's a really interesting story, this, because the script's changed quite a lot, and Phoebe...
Daily, I think we could say.
And when we were in preparation, I found a load of YouTube videos of Catholic priests showing you how to wear vestments. So I sent Phoebe these YouTube videos, and some of the priests were actually, they were quite hot. You know, they were quite handsome. So she was thrilled that she was getting the YouTube videos, because that meant that whatever she was writing, that's what I was going to get. And so Andrew could put the things on in the proper order, because there was at one point, that's one of the things I didn't get. He did put it on all in order on camera. It didn't get onto camera. But getting the vestments was a different matter, because vestments cost thousands and thousands of pounds. And modern vestments are mainly they're either really expensive or they're embroidered by a loving congregation. And so what I had to do was I had to go and hire them. I knew where to hire them from. I went to Angels, but most of the vestments at Angels were quite period feeling and vintage looking. And I still think now that the vestments I use, they don't reflect the modern world. They are the best vestments I could get to tell the story that we needed to tell, although they're not completely modern. So we did a lot of research, and I sent Phoebe all the research, and then I got a load of vestments, and I gave Andrew and Phoebe the choice about which ones they wanted to use.
Very good. Something that I didn't even know.
Are you going next?
I'll go on to my next question, which is from Laurie. When you saw the finished product, was there anything you felt worked better than you thought it would, or didn't work as well as you'd hoped? So I have to say, when we went to a crew screening and they showed us the first two episodes or three, I just remember sitting through the first episode and literally being close to tears, thinking, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And, you know, when you're filming the dinner party scene in the restaurant, we shot that over 5 or 6 days. And even with a gap in between, I seem to remember.
There was a gap in between.
We shot 3 or 4 days, and then there was we went to another location, and then we came back to it.
Wasn't
and
it a bank holiday? Yeah.
That was it. It was a bank holiday. And so you just don't really get an overview of how that's all going to come together until somebody like, you know, Gary Dolner does the most incredible job editing it.
Yeah.
And when you see it, I was literally blown away, and I just thought, wow, this is really something amazing. And, you know, prior to that time, you know that it's going to be good because the scripts are so amazing. But when you actually see the finished product, it really, you hope, because it doesn't happen on every show you work on, but it's you know, it normally comes out better than you imagined. That's the wish anyway. Sorry, Ray.
No, go on, carry on.
So, I mean, I think everything worked as well as I'd hoped. In fact, I would say it surpassed my expectation when I saw it. So that's always the dream, really, when you put your heart and soul into something and you suddenly see something amazing, you think everything was worth it. But it's unusual. This is an unusual job, and it's really rare that we get the chance to work on something as good as that. So I know, I'm sure I speak for Ray when I say that we're incredibly grateful for having the chance to have worked on something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And what people, it's so random when we make things, because we make them completely out of order. So you're doing 6 episodes, and you have we just shoot the scenes, and it's not until we get a preview of it that we realize what it's going to be like. And again, watching episode 1 was amazing, because suddenly you kind of went, oh, it's not just good, it's amazing. I think one of the raw moments for me was I had to shop with Kristen Scott Thomas, who plays Belinda, was cast literally the day before. I went shopping with her at 4:00 in the afternoon before the day she went on camera. So Kristen and I was nervous because it was Kristen Scott Thomas. She was nervous because she had that huge monologue. We got together with a big conversation about how brilliant it was and how brilliant Phoebe is and how brilliant the writing is. I threw some clothes at her. She put them on. She went, yeah, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. We sent them to Phoebe. I was literally in a taxi at 5 or 6 o'clock the night before she was on camera, and sending Phoebe photos of Kristen saying this is what she's wearing tomorrow. So when you're doing things like that, you kind of don't have an overview. So
yeah, it's very true. And also when you're on set, often, well, I know for Ray as well, but I will generally only be on set at the start of a new scene just to kind of see everyone in and make sure everything's how they want it. Then I'm off setting up the next day or the next scene or the next location. And so you rarely get the chance to sit in front of a monitor and even watch the filming. So it's really hard to know how it's going to look. And then also what you see on a monitor isn't how it ends up in the finished product, because once it's edited, it goes through a grade and, they tweak the colors and the lighting slightly. And so, it takes on a whole different quality as well once it's been edited. So it's always, it's really quite refreshing to you kind of see it as a viewer for the first time. You see it new,
don't you? And I think for me, especially with Phoebe and the way she deals with things, is because I wasn't sitting on set all the time looking at it. I was just setting up all the time and doing fittings. I didn't realize the subtleties that were going on, because Phoebe, everybody, all the cast used what I'd done to great advantage. So the red dress was a little bit too short. Phoebe used that when she was going up the ladder to the attic. But I didn't know that at the time. Even though we talk a lot, I wasn't there to watch it because I was busy. And so it's not until you see the final thing that you kind of go, wow, they've really worked with what we've given them. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I will say, Kristen Scott comic looked fabulous. So, I mean, as you know, but that is such an iconic outfit. That's amazing. You turned it around so fast.
I know. Can you imagine how it felt? I was like, Kristen, how about a pussy bow? And she was like, go for it. It's fine.
Oh, I forgot where we're at. Is it?
Yes.
Turn to answer.
Can I ask a quick question? I don't know
Sure.
if you guys.
Yeah.
You mentioned the red dress was intentionally too short, or are you saying it was that was an accident?
No, it was intentionally a little bit too short. Slightly. Okay. Well, Fleabag is always slightly inappropriate.
Yeah, because when she goes up the ladder and she kind of holds it, that's what I was thinking. Was that?
Yeah. But then she used it. Me and Phoebe knew it was intentionally too short, but okay. I didn't know she was going to do that because I wasn't on set when she went up the ladder. So I was like, well done, Phoebe. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Also, before you guys move on, I just wanted to point out that Greta and Jonathan are in Hillary's cafe together.
Yes, I know. I noticed they are.
I wanted to say, Jonathan, yours looks better than mine. Mine's fake.
I do love that.
I was going to have Phoebe behind me, but I couldn't get her to sit in the right place, so I decided not to.
I like your decorations too.
And Sarah's in the church.
I've got lots of crazy background. We could be outside the. That's Harry Bradbeer and Phoebe.
Nice. Oh, there's Harry. Yeah.
That's fine. Oh, that's a great shot.
So now, was it Ray's turn?
So is it my turn?
Did you finish Chrissy's? Because Chrissy had 2 questions.
Chrissy,
no, we'll pass that.
I have a lot of questions, and I get to ask questions all the time. So.
I can't remember who answered. I think it was me, wasn't it? I was answering Laurie's question about when we saw the finished product. So back to Ray for
back to me then. And
number 4,
what were some of the decisions around the priest's when he wore his collar and he wore his street clothes, and how did Ray approach the priest's personal style when he was wearing regular clothes? Well, Andrew and I talked to Phoebe before I fitted Andrew. We had a discussion, and she was obviously talking to Andrew. So when we came to do the costume fitting, I wanted the priest to look as straightforward as possible. I didn't want him to have any fashion sense, except what he did have had to be old, used, and look like he didn't have any money, but he did have style. And I know that one of the big conversations, and it wasn't a huge conversation, but I remember saying, well, basically the writing changed from in episode 1 while they were around the table, because we'd had a conversation. We did talk about everything. And I said, should he wear his collar at the table? And that's what prompted, I think, Jonathan, that's what prompted Phoebe to say, actually, no, because I don't want to know he's a priest to begin with. And so that happened very intentionally. And also, I want when she goes to the church and to the vicarage, and he answers the door at night, I wanted something fun. I wanted that human side to him, because we'd seen him at the restaurant, which is kind of semi-formal. We'd seen him in church. We'd seen him doing his duties, and I wanted to see him caught off guard with a cartoon on his shirt. And now, when I presented that to everybody kind of gasped and kind of went, "What? And then suddenly they slowly realised that actually it was a bit of fun, and it was just going to happen before the Fox conversation. We're going to put a hoodie over it. And so I just wanted that moment to have a human aspect to it. And so we did talk about it all the time, basically. We talked about what should be revealed at what point.
What was that T-shirt? It was Buffalo Bill?
No, it wasn't anything specific. It was basically, it was from a vintage store, and we tried to find out what it was, but we couldn't ever work it out. We tried to find out because basically we wanted to clear it. We thought it might be something famous or something clearable, but we worked on trying to find out where it came from. But it was just an old T-shirt with a graphic on it. So that was it. We tried, we couldn't ever find out where it came from.
It was such a great choice. I just think it spoke volumes about him.
Bo, I mean, yeah, I think there's some risk taking in the costumes, which I will talk about later.
Where's that T-shirt now? I know that's a later question about that sort of thing.
That T-shirt's gone. I think Andrew may. No, he hasn't got it. I think we gave it away. No. It's not with me.
Did you do a costume sale at the end?
No, I wasn't allowed to do a costume sale because my budget was so small. I had to use a lot of my personal stock. And well, I can cover another question here, actually.
Yeah.
So at the end, because we knew it was the last series for Phoebe, we gave everything to Phoebe. So for everything that Fleabag had ever worn, we gave to Phoebe, and she took it all, and she's really pleased to have it. Yeah. Sian took all of her costumes, and so we did a "what would you like" moment for each character. So I have a few of them. I have a few of the bought costumes, but quite a lot of them were mine anyway.
Well, they might be in the V&A sometime.
I tell you what I do have. I still have Belinda's costume, because
Nice.
that was one of the big bought ones, which might appear on some of the productions I design occasionally.
We'll be keeping an eye out now.
Yeah.
Doctor Who suddenly or the Doctor suddenly wears a pussy bow.
Yeah, pussy bow. I Jodie wouldn't do that.
Oh. Right, I guess we should move on. We've still got quite a few questions. So, question from Maria. How did working on Fleabag compare to other projects you've worked on in the past? And is there a particular set or set piece you're most proud of? I think every job I do is completely different to every other job I do. In that, you generally are working with a new team of people. You generally are working on a completely different script, and it will always be shot in a different way. So I would say every job is unique. I mean, I tend to do a lot of comedy drama programs, so there's a similarity there. but every job is different, and some are obviously much nicer to work on than others. Some are more artistically rewarding to work on than others. They're just all different, and you kind of take, you know, something new from every job you do. As far as a particular set piece, so crikey, I mean, we didn't, so in season 1 we didn't really build very much. We ended up building Fleabag's bedroom and a squash court because we had nowhere else to shoot it. And so that was one small set. But I think probably season 2, I would say the restrooms was my favourite set. In fact, I'll try and let me see if I can share my screen. We built that in a location because we didn't have any studio space, because we didn't have the money to go to a studio lot. And so, and again, we scouted so many different toilets. None of them quite worked. The one that was at the actual restaurant that we shot in was way too small for us to film in. And no one would make a decision, which was kind of quite common.
Yeah.
And we ended up building it as a set within a room, and I kind of chose this room because I like the floor. So let me see if I can share my screen. There we go. Is everyone seeing that?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this I built this in SketchUp, and actually if you look at the white part of the walls, that's the building that we're in. So the set literally fits. I mean, there was a door here and a door here, and this was the kind of like lobby to this manor house that we were filming in. It's actually the door to the left leads to where we shot Godmother's studio. So we wanted to try and do as many things as we could in this one location. And then this was the set that I designed and built into this room. And it was literally touching the walls. And so what we were able to do is use the lights that were in that room anyway, and the floor, which is, I mean, this is very roughly, it's quite a rough model, but you can see the wallpaper I put on there that we chose. And then we actually ended up getting, I went to a toilet cubicle manufacturer, and we actually got these made, you know, as toilet cubicles. So this is how that set started life.
So cool.
That's the way it was shot mostly, I think, in that orientation.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
That's
Really
all
cool
right.
to see.
So yeah, so that, I think that was the set I was most proud of in this show. And also because it was like the series opener, it was a really important scene, and you know, it kind of, a lot went on in that bathroom, and you know, it had to really kind of hit the mark. So I was really pleased to get the chance to actually build that rather than just shoot it as a location. Cool. Okay, Ray, over to you. Number 4. It's Maria again, I think.
Maria Gillin, who was your favourite character to design wardrobe for? Who was the most difficult to dress? And what challenges did you run in when creating their wardrobe? I mean, my favourite character to design for was Fleabag. So if I give you a little history about me and Phoebe, we did a series 3 or 4 years ago called Broadchurch, and she was in season 2, and that's when we first met. And when we were shopping and getting the character for Broadchurch, she was telling me that she was writing Fleabag and trying to get it, trying to perform it. And I, at the time, said I really want to see it. And because I get very busy, Broadchurch happened, it went away, and I never got to see Fleabag. But I did kind of bump into Phoebe socially at weddings and things like that. So when I was asked to do Fleabag 2, I kind of thought, yeah, this is great. I'll step in. I've just finished Doctor Who. It's a comedy, and Phoebe came in the room and said, the day I started, and said, "I'm so glad you said, yeah." She said, "Boom! I did a little dance in the office," and I was like, "Why is she saying that? It's just a comedy." Well, I didn't stop working from beginning to. I mean, I didn't sit down from the beginning to the end. But it was really interesting dressing Fleabag. I did this, and because I'd known the purpose of that story is because I knew Phoebe, I knew how to dress her. I couldn't take her shopping. I had to design things. I also knew Olivia, and so I was able to just go out, get loads of different looks according to the script, and we had the most amazing fittings. So she was the most fun, and I loved dressing her, and we talked every day about what she was wearing. We added things, we took things away, we had little traumas. We had one trauma about the dress she wore in the funeral episode, because we needed to land on that in a very good way, because she'd written this script where everybody was saying how gorgeous she was looking, but I was saying I didn't want her to look like she had dressed up in a sexy way to go to her mother's funeral. It needed to make sense. So we had lots of discussions about that kind of thing. And I would say the trickiest person, even though I love her to bits, was Olivia, who played Godmum, who I also am very good friends with, and luckily I'm good friends with her, but she was making The Crown. And we could only have Olivia on Sundays or some weekends. So our schedule was all over the place. And I had to do Godmother's fittings when I could, and I only had a certain amount of time. It was lucky that I knew Olivia, but I found the whole process of doing Godmother's clothes not tricky. It was complicated because I wanted her to look the best, and I wanted her to look the way Olivia wanted her to look, but also the way that Phoebe wanted her to look. So that was a balancing act, but we did it, and we're all good friends. So the thing that I was constantly worried about with that was that they would ask me for something I couldn't do, and they never did. We talked about it all the time.
Ray, this is Denise in Colorado. Thank you so much. So when while you're talking about that, the wedding costumes, the bride and groom, were very unusual. But the characters were as well. But
yeah, do you want a background to it?
Yeah, could you have a little background on that one? And then the one other thing is, of course, the jumpsuit, Phoebe's jumpsuit.
Okay. So, firstly, the wedding. Phoebe may kill me for telling you this, but I'm sure she won't. But in the script, didn't it, Jonathan? It said, "Dad is wearing a ruff."
Yeah.
I kind of said to Phoebe, "What? How could he wear a ruff to his wedding?" And she laughed at me and she said, "My father is so going to kill me."
Brilliant.
And so I decided it wasn't going to be a period ruff. I would buy the most modern suit I could buy for him, and I would add a tiny ruff. And then the line, I think that was one of the lines that was cut. She didn't acknowledge it at all. So I thought, right, the ruff doesn't make sense now, but that doesn't matter. Godmother was going to be a bit rock and roll and a bit modelly and wear a hat, and I actually got a suit made for Olivia, which was kind of satin and a bit rock and roll. But what had happened before that was that I'd done a lot of research on kimonos, and I'd sent Phoebe a load of pictures of kimonos, which were bang on fashion. And when we got closer to the wedding, Phoebe and Olivia said, oh, we're not sure about this suit. And I said, oh, I happen to have all the pictures of the kimonos. Let's go this way. And that's what they did. So my instinct for that wedding outfit was the one that they went with originally, in the end, even though we'd explored other things.
And you wrapped her head. Am I right?
I made special, well, not on the wedding. We made this special kind of floral headband for the wedding. Yeah. And I remember on the day Phoebe came to me and said, can we just take some of that away? So I kind of thought, actually, I really like it. So I went over to Olivia with a scissors and I took 2 petals away. And I said, oh, I've taken some away, Phoebe. And she said, great. So, but the other headdresses were I bought some vintage Japanese fabric and made a series of scarves for Godmother's head. So because I wanted some Japanese and vintage fabrics for the wraps on her hair.
Yeah, it was stunning, really. It was very surprising.
Yeah. Good.
And go ahead. My follow-up would be the jumpsuit. I forgot to put it in the question, but of course the jumpsuit when you were talking about favorites in Phoebe.
Yeah. Well, I remember buying the jumpsuit and looking at it and thinking, this hasn't got a front or a back. But, hey, I know Phoebe, and it was so cheap. I just thought, oh, take a risk, just take it, because I bought several. And then when we did the big fitting, I said, no, look, this hasn't got a front or a back, but, let's see. And she put it on, and she literally looked in the mirror and went, boom, episode 1. And that was it. So, and I said, but Phoebe, you can't wear a bra with it. She said, it's fine, look, it's all sitting in place. And it is true that the one I bought was a navy one. We were filming on it, and the week we were filming on it, she went to the premiere of Killing Eve at BAFTA, the BAFTA screening, and she said to me, can I wear the jumpsuit? And I said, no, because we're filming on it. You can't take it away from the shoot. And she said, well, you go and get me another one. So I went to get her another one, but they only had black ones left. And I've never seen a navy one since, but we used a navy one for the shoot. There's a big confusion about whether it was navy or black. And so the ones that are in the shops now are black, and within the period of me buying Phoebe her second one to wear, basically on the night of the Killing Eve preview at BAFTA, she sent me a picture of her, Sandra Oh and Jodie Comer, and said, well, everybody's asking me where this jumpsuit came from. and she was really surprised, but she looked fab in it. And then when the episode was broadcast, she kept sending me messages going, the jumpsuit is something on Twitter. Well, it was an event or something. Have you seen Twitter? The jumpsuit is an event. And I kept thinking, I don't know what's happening with this jumpsuit, really. But I'm really pleased. She looked fabulous in it.
Yeah. Thank you. The best part is that you told Phoebe, no, you can't.
Can you imagine if she'd left it at home? You couldn't film on it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. That was fabulous.
Yeah. You're welcome. Your turn, Jonathan.
Good. Okie dokie. Terry, curious about the logistics. How much time is typically allotted to scout, prep, source, and is it per scene, per episode? Also, how involved is Phoebe? So normally,
kind of answered some of it.
We have, yeah. I mean, normally you would have within maybe the 6 weeks of pre-production, you would go out scouting with the director, and then you would kind of pin down your locations, and then you would do a tech scout with all the heads of department, and at that point you would kind of pin down those locations. I'm not sure one single location was pinned down before we started filming, which is horrific. It's like it's the worst place to be in because you can't plan anything. I do remember that the first day of the shoot was supposed to be in the church, and I can't remember which scene it was, but it was probably all of Andrew and Phoebe's scenes in the vestry. And the weekend before our Monday shoot, the church pulled out, and so we couldn't start shooting on Monday. We had to then start on the Wednesday, and in that interim period we went out scouting like crazy to find another church. But I think we didn't start filming the church. I think we started with something else.
It was the cafe, Jonathan. Was it the exterior of the cafe? It was in Hampstead.
I don't know that. I don't think it was, because the cafe was still kind of an unknown location at that point, because we thought we weren't going back to it. So I'm not sure it was the cafe. I can't even remember. If I get a minute when Ray's talking, I'll have a look on my schedule.
It goes round in circles. Yeah, it goes round in circles, doesn't it? Because I remember the church we ended up filming in was something, I did something called The Split, and there was a lot of stuff in the church, and I said to Sarah, the producer, well, we used this church, which was the church we ended up in, but when I'd suggested it at the beginning, I think it was in the wrong place, or it wasn't good for the schedule, and we did end up going there in the end because it had a more friendly priest. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. There's so many logistics. It's not just about finding the right location. It's about finding it in the right part of town so that it fits in with the other locations that you like. And the scheduling is really crucial. So once the script are locked, then the first assistant will do a script breakdown and a schedule. And then they kind of try and allocate certain days to certain locations, and you kind of try and lump everything together to make it the most efficient way of filming. And our schedule was just such a, I don't want to say disaster, but I mean, it was really horrendous.
When you say locked, Jonathan.
Yeah, normally on a normal production, you would have shooting scripts before you start shooting. But this was a very unusual production in that we had scripts, but they were constantly changing. We had locations that we kept on losing, and then the schedule would have to change, and we would lose them because of that. And we had awful availability problems with Olivia because she was on The Crown, and so they had first choice on her. And so whenever they were filming The Crown with Olivia, we had to do something else, and that obviously created quite a lot of difficulty for all of our logistics. So from a logistic point of view, I would say Fleabag Series 2 was probably one of the most chaotic shows I've worked on. But normally you've got enough time, and it's kind of done with military precision, and everyone knows what they're doing, and you just get on and do it. But this was a bit more free form.
Normally, on any other production, you would go to a certain location and do everything at that location that you need to do on that filming block, and it didn't happen like that.
No, we went back to the church 2 or 3 times, didn't we?
Yeah, and
So it was logistically very tricky. And then the next part of the question, I would say Phoebe was very involved in all sorts of things, costume and production design, but not in an interfering way. She was, I can't talk for Ray, but everything that I offered up, she was really happy with and didn't really have any changes to make. And I kind of found that although she was involved, she was very happy to let me do my job, which is, again, that's quite unusual. Some people like to micromanage everything, but she's very good at letting people do their job, and that's, which is amazing, because that's what you're there to do, rather than just to be told what somebody wants. So I would say she is quite involved, but not in an interfering way.
Yeah, and it was the same for me. I mean, I I was never worried. Obviously, it's different between production design and costume design because I'm dealing. Jonathan is dealing with sets, and I'm dealing with actors who have opinions and have opinions beyond Phoebe's opinion as well.
Yeah.
So I have to manage that. And what Phoebe and I managed to do was, she was very happy with what I was doing, and then if we thought if, for example, Olivia didn't want to wear the rock and roll suit for the wedding, I would just go to Phoebe and say, look, this isn't a good idea, or can we change this idea? Are you stuck on it? And she would just do it like that. She would say, yes, fine. Because it worked both ways. She would rewrite scenes and expect me and say, you know, oh, I've changed this now. Can we have this? And I would say, yes, of course, because it was a collaboration of trust and, in a way, a collaboration of great admiration.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it was easy. because you
easy.
just want to please, and it's not that you want to please, it's that you want to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Right. I think that's over to you, Ray. But I think we should probably pick the pace up a bit, otherwise
Yeah,
this could go
sorry.
on for hours. No,
We have covered quite a lot of later questions as well.
We have.
So,
I'm sure none of you are getting bored, but I don't want to keep everyone waiting for too long.
Were you able to, this is Claire Brownlow, were you able to keep any props or costume pieces? Well, I've kind of talked about that, and we did give Sean and Phoebe, Olivia and Andrew any bits they wanted. We give Dad, all the main characters, we gave them something to take home with them. But a lot of the stock was mine to begin with. So I did take all my stock back, plus I had anything that I think we did have a tiny sale, but it wasn't of anything significant. So yes, I still have got some things.
I've got nothing, sadly. We didn't keep any props. A lot of the things were kept, like the Wall of Cocks and the little statuette, the gold statuette. There was 2 or 3 of those, and Phoebe kept those and gave them out to various people. And I'm trying to think what else. I think the sisters' painting is still alive and well somewhere. Actually, I've been working with Phoebe recently because I'm sure she won't mind me saying, but she's moving into a new office, so I'm helping her do a little bit of design in the office. And as far as I'm aware, the Wall of Cocks will be making an appearance in her office.
Brilliant.
So yeah, a few of those bits got kept, but sadly everything else didn't, which is a shame. But
Can I ask really quickly, Ray, how many costumes do you keep? Or how many? Do you have rooms and rooms full of clothes, or?
I have a store. Yes, I have a costume store, and I have 3 rooms in the costume store, which are full. I've got too many costumes to go back into the costume store. So before this happened, I was about to find a new costume store or get rid of lots of clothes, because not only do I have bits from Fleabag, I have bits from Doctor Who, I have bits from A Midsummer Night's Dream, from everything I've ever done. And it's a question of working out whether to keep them or not. So I just have to find somewhere new for it all to go. But yes, I could have bought a second house with the rent I pay for my costume store. However, there we are.
That sounds lovely. Thank you.
Is it me or is it you, Ray?
I think it's you.
Track. Okay. Yes, Anna. Related to the question about Phoebe, would a writer usually get involved in the design? Yes and no. I mean, more so in American productions, the writers are a bit more hands-on. But because Phoebe wrote this and starred in it, she was very much a part of the design process. And so I would say it's normal on a UK production. The normal chain of command is that you will show your designs to the producer and the director, and generally they will have the final say, and sometimes the writer might be involved in that, but not always. But in this case, Phoebe was very much part of that design process.
Yeah, and I'm used to it on Doctor Who, because the showrunner on Doctor Who allows a very democratic process. So the writers are always, just so that you can give something unique to that director and that writer, and they don't feel part of just a big machine. But with the big thing about Phoebe and Fleabag was that it was Two Brothers was the company that were making it, and I think she chose them very wisely because they gave her complete freedom, creative freedom to do what she wanted, which was a great thing.
Mm.
It's my turn now, isn't it?
It's now over to you. Yeah.
How did you each become involved? What kinds of things inspired your artistic? This is Margot. Margot, I think I've said that, haven't I? Because I knew Phoebe. I was when she came to. I never got to see the theatre production. I knew Phoebe from Broadchurch. I knew Phoebe socially. I was really busy for a couple of years, and I saw she'd made Fleabag 1, and suddenly, because I'd worked with Two Brothers on a series called Liar, suddenly they said, come and do, Phoebe, come and do series 2. And then Phoebe called and said, oh my God, that would be so amazing. And so that's how I got involved. I would have liked to have done series 1 as well, but I couldn't.
I'm watching Liar at the moment. It's very good.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, that's another one. I didn't do Liar 2 because I was busy on Doctor Who. So, but Liar, Liar 1 kind of set up the whole.
That's great.
The whole premise. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, and so just in answering that question from my side of things, I had an email from Lydia Hampson, the first producer, who was kind of exec producing on the second series. And she was checking me out for the pilot before Fleabag, before anything had been made. And I couldn't do it. I can't remember what job I was on, but I wasn't available and didn't really think anything of it. And then the pilot was shot and by with another team. And then they obviously got the series, and Lydia sent me another email saying, we've got a series, are you available? And I was at that point. So she said, great, come down and meet Harry Bradby, the director. I can't remember whether I met Phoebe at that point. I don't think I did. Although I do remember seeing her in the office, and she kind of waved across from behind, and she's just got an amazing presence. And I thought, wow, that's, she's going places. But so I had this interview with Harry and got on really well with him. And they offered me the series, and so that's I've got no idea how they originally found me to ask me about the pilot. That's a mystery to me. But sorry.
Isn't that because you do what you do?
Well, I guess so. I guess so. I've been doing it a long time, and
we've got something
well known in the comedy and drama.
Yeah, well, we've both got something in common. A series in common, which we never ever worked on together.
Yeah, of course.
But we did. We both
Yes.
quite known for it.
Yeah,
so
it's the most popular comedy in Scottish television history. It's called Still Game, and they made, I think, about 12 seasons. It ran for, I want to say, 6 or 7 years, and then it stopped for about the same amount of time. Might have even been 10 years. And Ray worked on the first batch. I
set it up and designed the original.
Yeah, and it was the most popular show ever. And I got asked to do the kind of relaunch, which was probably going back 6 years from now. It's since finished, but I worked on it for 3 or 4 series. But Ray had kind of moved on from then, so we never came across each other. But we have that job in common.
Having said that, if I hadn't been so busy, I would have so gone back to it because the director wanted me to go back.
Yeah, it was a lovely show.
And I just couldn't go back. I was too busy.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very
anyway,
hard.
So basically, that's how, I mean, it was interesting for me stepping back into Fleabag into comedy on Fleabag, because I hadn't done comedy for quite a long time. And suddenly all those comedies I did kicked off. All the memories came back.
Yeah.
The process came back for that kind of shoot.
Well, Jonathan, one day when we speak to Phoebe, we'll ask her how she found you.
Yes.
And we'll let
you must. Oh.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm curious, Jonathan, Ray, did you guys meet on Fleabag then, or did you guys?
I think that was our first job together. Yeah.
It was. Yeah. We met on Fleabag, and I don't think at that time, Jonathan, I even knew you were doing Still Game or you'd done Still Game.
No.
It was during the course that we realised.
Yeah. Small world. But then, it's like, with all the actors and actresses that we work with, both Ray and I have been doing this for so many years. And, you work with a lot of actors and actresses. And Olivia Colman, a great case in point, I worked with her on her very first TV appearance back in probably the late 90s, might have been, I forget the year, but it was on a comedy called Green Wing, which was really popular over here, and she played one of the office girls, and she was just such a charming, lovely individual. Even back then, she was an absolute nobody, and she was the nicest lady to work with. She was just so sweet, and I've worked with her a few times since, obviously on Fleabag as well, and she's a delight. She's a really lovely person.
She's adorable. She's lovely. And it's really funny because directors kind of go, oh, they'll tell you an actor's name, and they go, oh, I've worked with them. And they go, oh, God, you would have, wouldn't you?
No, we're very lucky. I mean, she's a really genuine, lovely person, like Phoebe is. So.
Yeah.
Question for both.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Ray. Hi.
No.
Emily from Seattle here. While we're on this topic, question for both of you. What was your favorite part of collaborating with the cast, with Phoebe? I mean, you've mentioned bits about how lovely everyone is, but what would you say is your favorite part about collaborating with this particular cast and with Phoebe?
Shall I go first?
Right. Yeah, you go first.
It's really hard when you're making a production to get time. Because from my point of view, I'm shopping, designing, fitting, making. I'm not on the recce's. I'm not there day to day. And even though on the day when you're filming, the costumes are quite important and everybody suddenly focuses, I need to get people to focus on them before the day because I need them to be right. And what the nice thing about it was that even though it happened nearly at the end of every day, and that's not surprising for Fleabag, most things, costume meetings happen at the end of the bloody day. But it was I never felt I was being a pain in the neck by talking to Phoebe or Harry about what they wanted. And so that was great.
Yeah, they're a very approachable bunch because obviously they want the product to be right and they want to get the best out of everyone. And so it was a great collaboration. It's not always like that. And also there's often different chains of command. Sometimes it's just the director that will give you the input, and sometimes it's the writer as well. But it's unusual that the talent get involved because they generally get given what they're given and like it. But you know, if this is slightly different because Phoebe was obviously writing it and starring in it, but ordinarily the people starring in it haven't had anything to do with the writing, and they tend to, certainly from my point of view, they don't get involved in the set design. I mean, obviously it's great when they walk on set and you get a really great reaction from them, but generally the talent doesn't have any kind of say in how things look. I mean, I'm sure that's very different if you're working with somebody like Tom Cruise, who's probably got a lot of say about what his props look like and things like that. But just on a general TV show, the actors and actresses, they kind of just turn up and do their thing. But it's always really nice to actually get some feedback from them. And often as a series grows, the character becomes more apparent and the people acting know more about the character, and then you can kind of get a bit more input from them, and you kind of, you know, you go down that route together. And you know, that's always really nice when you get that chance to have those sort of conversations. But like every job, there generally isn't the time, and this was such a scramble with so many late decisions and things happening last minute that it was almost, and it's a horrible thing to say, but it's almost that will do because we haven't got the time to do anything different. And there was a lot of kind of seat of the pants stuff, and you just had to do something or nothing at all. And so there was very, very little luxury of time of being able to kind of really be specific about picking things out. I mean, that's not to say it didn't happen, but it didn't happen as much as kind of, you know, I would like, because there was so little time.
We would refine things, wouldn't we? If we could. We would keep on refining. And I remember feeling not in a bad way, but I felt anxious for the whole shoot.
Yeah.
In a free-floating anxiety kind of way. Not in a bad way, not in a negative way, but I felt anxious that I wasn't giving the best I could.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that.
Because
it was quite a compromise throughout every department, really, because of the time and money constraints. But I just think, you know, we were particularly lucky in that it was kind of a perfect storm of HODs, really. And we, you know, obviously the first thing comes from the great script writing, and then you get the great acting and the directing, but then you have the great cinematography and the costume design and the production design and the hair and makeup and locations, and you know, it just all kind of meshed together.
Yeah, we glued together, didn't we?
Yeah, we were very fortunate. It was just the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky.
We were all in the same boat.
Yeah.
So, but in actual fact, for all the anxiety, there wasn't much moaning. Well, we didn't have time to moan, did we?
No, I don't think there was much moaning. No, there was a lot of frustration. But
there's a lot of, I could do this better. I could do this. But, you know, it worked.
Good. I guess we should move on. Not at all. Is it? This is
you or me?
The nature. This is going to be the our buzzword, isn't it? Is it you or me?
We've gone off piste.
We have. So
while you're looking, I have a request.
Go for it.
Can everybody unmute for a second and let's all sing Chrissy happy birthday.
Oh.
Okay, ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chrissy.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh my God, thank you. Melt into a puddle. Bye.
We love you.
Anyway.
But shall I do?
I reckon it's you. I reckon it's
Greta
you, Ray.
Clinton,
I reckon you're on number 7.
Fleabag exhibits habits that many would consider naughty or explicit, but her dress is pretty simple, fairly traditional, rarely colourful, often demure. Can you comment on the stripes, Peter Pan collars and such, especially in the light of her comment about wanting someone to tell her how to dress? Yes, she doesn't know how to dress. but also she's an urban woman. She's a sexual, well, in actual fact, in series 1, she's exploring her sexuality. She's confused about it in series 2. And I know that, you know, this is a love story, is what the series started with. And I think that if you take it on its face value, then you think it's the love story between her and the priest. But in actual fact, it's the love story between her and Claire. So it's the story, so it's not, so less sexualized stuff in series 2, but obviously we needed to keep the character. And I had a tiny budget, and I spent lots of time going out to the shops trying to get quirky things. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, because we never explicitly did it, but there's a French element to her taste. So Fleabag has a little bit of French taste. I did buy her berets. She was going to write into it her in her trench coat with a beret on and look at the camera and say, "Ooh, too French?" ? But we never got there. We never got to that point.
Was there a reason for that French sort of influence or not?
That's where the stripes came from. And I think it was just because it's what Phoebe likes. And she wanted that a slightly continental feel. But also, if you notice, she doesn't trudge around London with high heels on.
No.
She wears her Superga shoes, and she's quite practical. I dressed her like any woman in London would dress. Not too warmly, because you get on the underground and you get boiling hot. You have to run around. It's urban, and also she's exploring herself, and she's explored her sexuality in series 1. And I don't know if you noticed, but in episode 2, when she goes back to the buy and sell, to the fete with the priest, she's kind of a little bit more demure. She's in her denim jacket with a floral dress. So she's dressing for the occasions that she's going to. And I felt like in the business meetings, she was dressed completely the opposite to Claire. So she was dressed like a waitress, or she didn't have an apron on. I think we talked about having an apron on, but decided not to. The funeral was the one that we had the most, it was the hardest thing to land on. So there's a mixture of conservatism and streetwise, practical, funky stuff as well. And also, we wanted to make it like the dress at the end is a Reformation dress. And so sustainable was the thing that we felt. Obviously, you don't look at the costumes and think, oh, they're sustainable, but most of them were from sustainable sources. So it was a great big mixture of things.
I love that. I think as a woman who dresses in a lot of different ways, I found like the practicality aspects really interesting, especially for a TV character. And then there are moments with like the jumpsuit where it is a real statement piece, and I thought it was cool that there's the mixture for the different.
And she's different things to different people.
Yeah.
The reason she was wearing the jumpsuit in episode 1, because she hadn't seen her family for a year. She was trying to say, I'm all right. This is me. I'm not broke. The cafe is actually making money. Look at me.
Brilliant.
But then, if you look at all the different places she goes to, she's dressed appropriately for the situation she's in.
Thank you for answering that.
Good. Okay, next question from Rebecca. I don't know whether Rebecca's still here. A few people have dropped out. The sets of Fleabag are fantastic. Thank you. Some of the niche things just make it for me, from the paper crosses on the priest's notice board to his clothing maiden at home. What were some of your favourite sets designed, put together, and what were your favourite aesthetically? So, well, I mean, kind of spoke a little bit about that, and yeah, probably the toilet set. I like the attic set because it was such a poignant moment in the series. It was kind of Fleabag's kind of final time to talk to her dad before he got married, and you just, you know, you felt that they were going to ultimately open up to each other, or that dad was going to open up, but obviously he found that very difficult. And I remember reading that bit in the script and thinking, oh, this is the time he's going to say I love you to her, but that never happened. But it was always a really important scene, so doing the attic was one of my favorite sets as well. And we put quite a lot of stuff in there that you wouldn't really notice, that we wanted to kind of allude to the history of the family when her mother was alive and when they were children. So we, you know, there was a few sort of old children's toys in the attic and things like that you might be able to spot. And there was just various bits and pieces, just, you know, the history of the family that we were trying to bring out subtly and obviously subliminally, because you're not really going to notice it. But it was a really nice chance to, you know, just to make something that kind of brought back some of the memories of Fleabag's mum as well, that was up in the attic, which is why I guess Dad had gone there to hide in the first place. So I'd probably say the attic on that one. Yeah.
Can I ask a question before you run to something else?
Sure.
Hi, Dina in Montreal.
Hi.
Going back to the clothes, who chose the blue leotard for Sean?
Which, sorry?
The blue leotard for Sean, when she is always reinventing herself when she has PMT.
Well, that wasn't me. That was series 1.
Series 1, yeah.
Sorry about that.
So I didn't have anything to do with that, and I think it was Phoebe. That's what Sean.
That's a Phoebe.
Sean told me it was Phoebe.
Thank you.
Right, Ray, I think you're on
Me again.
number 8.
So Denise Evans Grills. Adding to the above worded question, Fleabag's wardrobe more real as she wears the same things again and again are very simple. Most of us wear the same favourites, but many TV series have these crazy wardrobes. Was that a decision to be real, as Fleabag doesn't have a lot of money? And again, that's something we've talked about, really. Not only does Fleabag not have a lot of money, but the show didn't have a lot of money.
We actually didn't have a lot of money.
We actually physically didn't. And also, we were quite economic in the way we dressed everybody because of that. So we had to get the most out of the money that we had. And also, though there are some kind of big statements in the costumes, they had to make sense. Some friend of mine said to me, I can see the thinking behind every single costume. That's why that's one of the reasons that show works. And I think it was just that moment in time where I didn't have much money, didn't have much time, had a lot of chatting to Phoebe about the costumes, and we kept them real with a little twist. So that I think that's the answer to that question. Where is Denise? Are you still here, Denise?
Yeah, here. Thank you.
Oh, hiya.
Yeah, no, thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you. Back to you,
right. Sarah, I feel like I noticed butterflies a few places in the series. I believe in Fleabag's bedroom in the second series. Actually, it was in the first series as well. And in the therapist's office is correct, yes. If so, were they chosen intentionally as symbolic? So it's going to be really tricky to say it was symbolic. It was, I mean, I'd like to say it was, but not on such a deep level. We had a butterfly picture in Fleabag's bedroom in series 1, and then when we did her bedroom in series 2, she had moved into a different place. But I wanted to bring that piece back to give a bit of continuity so that we knew that this was Fleabag's bedroom. And so that's why that reappeared. And then when we got to the therapist's room, that incidentally was it was a reshoot after we'd wrapped.
It was a pickup,
And
wasn't it?
It was
Yeah.
a pickup day. It was a pickup day. It was a scene that we never got to during the regular shoot, and we finished filming, and it kind of dropped off, and we thought we could do without it. And Phoebe was really keen to bring it back, so they actually booked in one extra filming day a couple of months later, which is where we shot the bus stop ending, and we shot the therapist's office. And this was it was somebody's office in a council building in Richmond. So we had to pull everything out, and the walls were really lovely, but very bare, and we couldn't hang anything on the walls because we couldn't put holes into somebody's office. So I wanted something that was kind of just felt like I wanted something that was in glass, so that you would see the color of the walls behind, and it wouldn't be too obvious as like a picture, because the last thing you want is to just put a picture up for a picture's sake, just to fill a bit of wall. So we found these butterflies in kind of glass frames, and it just seemed like a really good thing to have in a therapist's office, because there's all sorts of kind of symbolism and connotations to that. So in that respect, I would say yes, that's why we chose it, but it's not really much deeper than that, I'm afraid to say. I wish there was more of a backstory to it, but with a lot of these things, you kind of you choose something because you like the look of it and you think it works for that scene, and you often don't get the time to kind of go beyond that and think of another layer. But sometimes you get the chance to do that. But with the butterflies, we just chose them because they look great.
Thank you so much for answering. I'm so touched. And the other Sarah Matthews, has a great question that we're all dying for her to ask. You have to ask, Sarah.
Okay. So in the scene with Priest and Fleabag in her apartment, when he undoes her trench coat, who picked her underwear? Which I can't believe I'm asking this.
It definitely wasn't me.
I bought Phoebe a big selection of underwear, mainly red bras, and I can't remember what she ended up wearing, but on the day that she was doing that, I took her the selection, and I given her some choices, and she chose what she wore ultimately. But yeah, that's how that worked. It was the simplest thing. So sexy bras, sexy knickers, and let Phoebe choose what she felt most comfortable in.
Kudos on the trench coat too. We love the trench coat.
Yes.
I have another. Oh, wait.
I have another kind of delicate question about that scene. Andrew Scott and Phoebe Waller-Bridge are not the same height, but they are in that scene. So did he have special shoes?
He didn't. No.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't there.
Don't remember anything.
It's probably camera angles. That's all.
I don't remember anything weird going on.
No.
In that scene.
Nothing.
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're never there.
Curious question. No, I wasn't there. I mean, I was there.
I mean, I've only watched that scene a couple times, so I can't say for sure. But
yeah, it's a camera angle. That's what
I think. So yeah, I don't think there was anything tricky going on there.
No. Now,
right,
can I go?
Yeah.
I can combine 3 questions.
Go for it.
We've talked about these things anyway.
Yes,
so,
go for it.
Anne Waldrum, this is a question on the clothes for the priest, from his t-shirt and tracksuit bottom to his blue sweater. I think I've answered that one because I just wanted to make him human. And the one thing that we haven't kind of talked about is his blue sweater. But she's walking down the street and she says, "Look at those arms." Well, we didn't want him walking down the street in a tight sleeved t-shirt. So we basically got him into this. It was the cheapest sweatshirt, and we cabled we clipped under the arms so that it would be tighter on him. And that's what we did for that, just so the line would work with the dialogue.
Well, we're all grateful that you made that choice.
And what was Fleabag's jumpsuit? Is she really wearing a blue version? Yes, she's wearing the navy, but I never saw a navy one after the moment I bought that one. They're all black. And how did we react to them selling out so fast? I thought that was amazing, because the little company that made them, I always go to the very basement of Topshop on Oxford Street, and it has little tiny designer ranges, which are a bit out there. And I went there and kind of thought, oh, let's see if there's anything here. And so it's a small company who make them, and I was really thrilled. I think we were both thrilled that that company got, without knowing, innocently and not knowing that this was going to happen, suddenly had to make loads of them. And then, oh yeah, and I think that combines my costume questions until it gets to how did you get into this. But I'll let Jonathan talk.
Okay, all right, so next one is from Nipel. Sorry if I pronounced that badly. Was there any Easter eggs in the production design and with the set and people have failed to notice? Gosh, I mean, I think an Easter egg would have been a luxury in the timescale that we had. I'm trying to think. I mean, I often try and do something if I can. I think season 1, we put some stuff on Boo's wall that was some photos that we took of the two of them, some Polaroids. You might be able to see those. I can't remember on season 2. I think we had way less time to do any fun things like that. But sometimes you get the chance to put in some little Easter eggs. If I think of any, I'll post it on the group. But I don't think there were, I'm afraid to say.
I can say something. There's no Easter egg for me, but I'd like to explain one thing, and that is in the wedding episode, I've forgotten Claire's husband's name.
Martin.
But Martin.
Sorry?
Martin.
Martin. Yeah. So Martin in the wedding episode appears at the end for the actual wedding without his tie. There was a little sequence cut in that final episode, which wouldn't have added anything to the episode, but basically he takes his tie off in it. And I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it might look like, it probably looks like a continuity mistake. But we did film a scene that didn't get in there. And that's the reason that he's suddenly not wearing a tie at the end of that episode. But it's not an Easter egg, sorry to say. We didn't have to...
Something to spot, though.
Yeah,
and the other thing to bear in mind is that not so much Ray, because he's in season 1, but season 1 we shot in 2016. So, I mean, you're going back 5 years. I can barely remember what I did last week. So it's really hard to... it's hard to remember all the little nuances. You know, once you finished a job, you kind of park it in your head because you're on to the next one. So it's really hard to kind of remember all the details. Once you've moved on to another production and you've done other things, you know, your memory kind of just gets swamped with all the new stuff you have to think about. So it's quite tricky to remember exactly what you did and why you did it all those years ago. My penultimate question. Oh no, I've got 3 more. When you watch Fleabag, can you enjoy it without focusing on your work? Yes, I think so. I always try. It's difficult, but I always try and watch a show as if I'm a viewer. So I do try and switch off. Yeah, I mean, I try to watch it as everyone else watches it.
I think the first time you see it, Jonathan, you're looking at.
You're definitely looking for things that you hope you're not going to see. That's
yeah.
That's the thing you're looking for.
You can kind of go right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult because you're always going to have a critical eye. I try to watch other people's programs as if I'm a viewer as well, because otherwise it kind of spoils it really. And you want to watch a TV show or a film for the enjoyment of it. So, you know, if you're picking holes and everything, you may as well be sitting at the monitor at work. So I try not to do that. But sometimes you can't help it, and sometimes you notice something that really winds you up, even on other people's show. Second part of that question, were Hillary's little straw hat and glasses a matter for production design or costume, or did you collaborate? Now, that's one I'm gonna say I think we
didn't.
bought all of those. Yeah. I think we did it as props.
I remember thinking, I hope he doesn't ask me to do that.
There's always this little fine line, this grey area between costume and production. And generally the rule is if it's being worn, it's costume. And if it's not being worn, i.e. somebody holds up a pair of boots or something, then it's a prop. But if they relate to the character, it's generally a costume. But there is a bit of a crossover. Sometimes we do stuff for costume, and sometimes they do stuff for us, and you know, that sort of thing. But I think with Hillary, I think if I'm right in remembering, we bought a little it was like a little doll set or something that had this little straw boater and these glasses, and so they came off some sort of toy, I think. But obviously they were guinea pig size, so worked a treat. And bless her, the little guinea pig was happy to wear them. It was very sweet.
And Hillary was still alive.
Hillary was still alive. Hillary made a second appearance from season 1 to season 2. It was the same Hillary, so that was that was quite sweet. She's since retired, I've heard.
Now I'm picturing. I was picturing Ray taking her shopping.
Oh,
sadly, no.
No.
I remember I sighed a breath of relief.
Can I insert a question real quick?
Of course, yeah, go for
Because
it.
somebody's just told me she's like literally waiting to go to her meeting until I.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
You've talked a lot about working with Phoebe and Olivia some, but we want to know what it was like to work with Andrew.
Oh. Well, Ray can probably answer that better than I can, because he would have had a lot more to do with Andrew. I mean, he was a really lovely, genuine, decent guy as far as I'm concerned, but I didn't have as much to do with him as Ray probably did.
Yeah, Andrew is lovely. He's very collaborative. He's very gentle. He's in a way quite method. He knew a lot Phoebe had talked to us separately, so that when we got together, we both knew the same things. He knows what he wants, and as a costume designer, looking at his physique, I knew that he would want those things. So I'd anticipated what he wanted. He was always absolutely adorable and lovely. So I think that's just, there was nothing, I think he was far more interested in his performance and doing the right thing than his costumes. And so as long as the costumes felt right and were right, then he just went and did his best. And him and Phoebe are really good friends. So you kind of, it's like having a little baby, you know, you kind of, right, I've done the work for you, off you go. I can do more. You send them off with pride.
Well, adorable and lovely was what we wanted to hear. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So I've got 2 more questions left. I don't know how many you've got on yours, Ray.
I have 2.
Shall we whiz through those? I'm sure people are very keen to.
Yeah. So mine is,
how did you comfort break at the very least?
Yeah. How did you get into this? Was this something you always knew you wanted to do? And did you train? Yes. kind of fell into it by mistake. I went to drama college. I'm from a working class family in the Welsh Valleys, and I was told that people like me didn't go off to study drama. So I believed the career's advice, and I went and worked for an insurance company. And within about 2 or 3 months, I knew I'd made a mistake. So I reapplied for drama college, and I got in again. And when I went to drama college, um, we did a foundation course, and the design tutor caught me and said, "I need you in my department," and I was quite surprised. And basically went into design, started designing sets and costumes, but it wasn't until I did some pattern cutting and costume designing that suddenly my tutor went, "Oh my goodness, this is what you need to do." That's what I did. And I did, at the end of my college years, I did an exhibition, and the BBC gave me an apprenticeship. So that was me. So I didn't ever think I would be a costume designer, no. And it was just a series of fortunate events.
It's funny how it works out. I mean, I kind of always wanted to get into theatre, actually, initially. So I started out, I went to art school and did sculpture, studied fine art. And once I was there, I kind of thought that I wanted to get into theatre design initially, and didn't really know anything about it. And my first job, I sent a letter. At the time, there was a massively big show in England called Spitting Image, which was a satirical puppet show, and it was like the biggest thing on TV at the time. And they just started up, and it was basically caricature puppets of famous people and politicians. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to do something like that? So I wrote a letter to the creators of that show, just some little guy fresh out of art school. And I said, "Oh, I've got my end of year show coming up. Would you like to come down and see my work?" Not thinking that they would, but Roger Law, one of the show's creators, turned up to my private view exhibition, my end of year show. And I couldn't believe it when he walked in, because he's this huge, larger than life guy. And I got chatting to him, and he said, yeah, we've got another series coming up in September. Why don't you come and see me then? And this was kind of June, just as I was finishing my degree. And I thought, oh, he's just fobbing me off. But anyway, I followed it up and went and had an interview, and he offered me a job on the next series. And so my first job in TV was making puppets for Spitting Image, which kind of launched me into television, really. And I never looked back. And then I kind of got myself a job as an art director, working for a production designer. And we worked on lots of music videos in the 80s together, and various TV shows. And I kind of went from there, and then got my first design job some years later. And that's how I got into it.
And for me, it was like the opposite, because I did do a degree in theatre design, and I was expecting to be a theatre designer.
Yeah.
But somebody from the BBC saw my exhibition and took me to BBC Birmingham, and that's where they trained me, and they trained me to designer level. So my tutor at college has always said, "You should have become a theatre designer." And I'm very happy being a costume designer. So
yeah.
Funny
well,
how
of course theatre designers do costume as well, don't they?
Yeah, because you do both. So yeah. So it's strange how things work out.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, funny old world. Right, have you answered all your questions, Ray?
Is there a designer, filmmaker, or artist who is particularly inspirational to you? Well,
yes, and I've got one other question.
I'm going to be really boring and say, I love Sandy Powell. And the nice thing about loving Sandy Powell, who's the costume designer, is that I could talk, when we were making Fleabag, Olivia had made The Favourite. And so Olivia would come to me because we're friends. And I would say, tell me what it was like. Tell me what it was like. And so when I was dressing her, she'd tell me stories of Sandy Powell and how that film had a budget and how it was tricky to make and how Sandy was a genius. And so that's who I love, yes. I'm trying to keep it short now.
No, good for you. I've got one last question. Where did you get the idea, inspiration for the Art Deco toilets in the restaurant? So I was kind of led by the location that we chose for the restaurant, which was a restaurant in London called Smith and Walensky, and it's kind of a steak restaurant, and it's on the Strand. It's in quite a posh part of London, and we took over their downstairs basically, and it's quite an Art Deco style in that restaurant. And so I was kind of led by that. It had to be in a similar vein, but I was really keen to make it dark, and so I just lucked out with this wallpaper, which anybody could buy. It's just a readily available wallpaper, but it just seemed to work really well. It's just, it fitted in with the architecture and had a nice kind of saturation to it. So yeah, and I just looked at lots of reference photos for hotel restrooms and upmarket restaurant restrooms and things like that. And again, we got lucky with the mirrors as well. Those were hired from a prop house. And I think some of the wall lights as well. Yeah, the wall lights as well we hired in. So we got lucky with what we found, but kind of the inspiration was led by the real place that we shot in. I think that is it. I think that's all the questions, unless anyone has got any other burning questions that they want to ask that wasn't on the list.
I have a really quick question for Ray, if that's all right. First of all, thank you so much for all of these insights. I think I can speak for everyone when I say it's invaluable. It's just been amazing. Just a quick question. I know that she wears it in season 1 as well, so I don't know if this was anything you had something to do with, but the wishbone necklace that she always wears, is there any symbolism behind that, or
no.
a bit of a backstory there?
I hate to disappoint you, but no, there's nothing. And I remember talking to Phoebe about the jewelry, and she said, well, let's just wait. I mean, basically season 2 was a major rehaul of Fleabag, and she even had a new trench coat. So we kept that as a memory from season 1, but there's no symbolic references at all. I wanted to put some symbolic references into jewelry, and she didn't want to, and which is fair enough. So no, sorry, it's just a season 1 necklace.
No worries, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ooh. Anyone else
Jonathan,
got any...
somebody mentioned in the chat, what happened to the life-size sculpture of Hugh Skinner?
Oh, now that's a good question, because I know we kept it. I'm pretty sure it went into storage after season 1, although I can't be sure. I mean, it's not something we would have just thrown away because it cost us a lot of money to make. So I don't know. I've also got a vague memory that we might have offered it to Hugh. But I don't know whether he's got it. I don't know. I'd like to think it exists somewhere.
Maybe he has it like in his closet and he models his outfits on
exactly,
it.
Yeah. Hangs his clothes on it.
I think we'll probably need a drink or a rest, some kind of a break now.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm on Twitter on Friday. There's a global simulcast of Matt Smith's very first episode as Doctor Who, which I designed. And it's also National Tweed Day. So I'm doing a 5:00 session for the BBC talking about tweed. So it's on Twitter though. So,
nice.
Okay, that sounds fabulous.
Well, find me on Twitter, and I'm going to reveal some things about the original Matt Smith costume.
Yeah, we'll be there.